Coming up tonight, a day of terror in Barcelona, Spain after an attack kills at least 13 people and a second attack is stopped. We have the latest. Also tonight.
You don't get to see many things in astronomy that change rapidly. An eclipse is one of the things that really changes rapidly.
North Country astronomers are getting ready for Monday's rare solar eclipse, but we'll tell you why they're already excited for one in 2024. But first, a large employer in the city of Watertown says some of its jobs are heading south. Good evening, I'm Chris Spiker, in for Jeff tonight. Thanks for joining us. New York Air Brake made the announcement this afternoon, and we begin tonight with our continuing coverage of the company's plan. New York Air Brake CEO and President Mike Hawthorne says the company is moving 40 of its jobs from its Watertown campus to North Carolina. All are assembly line positions. 7 News reporter Natalie Kutchko joins us live in studio to explain. Natalie.
Chris, New York Air Brake says those jobs are going to its Premtech facility in Salisbury, North Carolina. While the Watertown plant is losing 40 positions, that doesn't necessarily mean 40 people are losing their jobs. New York Air Brake is a global manufacturer of train control systems for the railroad industry. The company employs more than 400 people here in Watertown, but 40 of those assembly line jobs will be gone. CEO Mike Hawthorne says this was a difficult but necessary decision to make.
The fact is, if we don't make these decisions, the products aren't sold anyway because we aren't competitive in the market. So one way or the other, these products were going out.
Hawthorne says this plan fits Air Brake's needs because of how the plant in Salisbury, North Carolina operates.
It's a very repetitive and relatively low complex assembly process. And the products that we're moving from Watertown to North Carolina fit that same category.
As for what's next for the 40 Watertown workers whose positions are leaving,
we have a number of programs that we expect to be able to put in place so that they can transition either into additional jobs here in Watertown or to move on to the next point in their careers.
Mike Hawthorne also says Air Brake will meet with union leaders to discuss severance pay and other benefits for affected union employees. Chris?
All right, thank you, Natalie. Breaking news tonight in the town of Pamelia, where a murder suspect is in custody. The first court appearance just wrapped up minutes ago for 26-year-old Sean Moore in Pamelia Town Court. Moore is charged with second-degree murder in the May 20th shooting of 20-year-old Tyler Johnson. Moore was brought back to Pamelia just after 8:30 tonight from Orange County in Florida after he agreed to be extradited earlier this month. Moore asked to have an attorney present, so tonight's arraignment is postponed. He's being held without bail in Jefferson County Jail until his arraignment resumes next week. Moore is the fifth person charged in connection with Tyler Johnson's death. On Monday, a solar eclipse will be seen over the entire continental United States for the first time in 99 years. It's an event North Country astronomers have been excited about for years. But while they'll have their eyes on the sky, this eclipse also has them looking ahead to the future.
Pull it down, see if I can see through.
Eileen O'Donoghue is an astronomer and physics professor at St. Lawrence University.
I want to see those big sunspots, too.
She's traveling to Atchison, Kansas, talking to a woman's monastery about a topic nearly a century in the making, a solar eclipse seen across the entire continental U.S.
It'll be my first opportunity to see totality. I've never seen it. I've seen an annular eclipse and I've seen some partial eclipses.
That northeast corner of Kansas is one spot that will see totality, which is when the moon completely blocks the sun from Earth.
You can think of the shadow of the moon is actually a cone and only a small dot, it's about 70 miles wide this time, where the moon fully blocks the sun.
While northern New York won't see a total eclipse, you can see a partial one up here.
We won't have totality up here in the North Country, but we'll have about 60% of the sun blocked.
But mark your calendar and plan 7 years ahead. All of the North Country is directly in the path of totality during a solar eclipse projected for 3:24 p.m. on April 8th, 2024.
We'll be able to see during a total solar eclipse, you can see the outermost layer of the sun, the corona. We're not going to get to see that next Monday, but we will in 2024.
Which means the North Country may see a different type of tourism from eclipse chasers.
Maybe I'll invite some people from Kansas to come up to the North Country in April. I'm sure they'll love it.
Now, there is one lucky spot in the United States. A small portion of Illinois, Missouri, and Kentucky will see total eclipses on Monday and in April of 2024. Now let's check in with meteorologist Michelle McLeod to help us get ready to look at that historic eclipse. Michelle?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned looking at the eclipse. That is not something you want to do with your naked eye, nor do you want to do them with sunglasses. You want to use ISO certified protective eyewear such as this. I put these on and I cannot see anything. Now, this is exactly what you want to use to look at the eclipse. So looking at this graphic here, we're looking at what is called a penumbra, and that is exactly what we'll be looking at, that 60% of the shadow from the moon over the sun. Neighbors to the south of us are lucky. They'll be getting an umbra, which is the full shadow. So what we're looking at for our forecast for Monday is that we should have fair to good sky conditions for looking at this eclipse. We'll talk more about what's going on, and keep up with me in the next coming days. I'll tell you more about Monday's weather for the eclipse coming up. Chris?
All right, thank you, Michelle. Now we have the latest on today's terror attack in Barcelona, Spain. Spanish police now say they've shot and killed 4 people south of the Catalan city tonight to stop a second attack. A van plowed through a crowd today, killing 13 people, including an American. Terry Okita has the latest from Barcelona.
A van became a deadly weapon again in Europe, this time in Barcelona, mowing down pedestrians in the popular Las Ramblas district. They were out shopping, strolling, or dining at the time of the attack. Residents and tourists ran for safety, and nearby buildings were locked down.
We saw all these people, tourists running with bags, moms, kids, everybody trying to find some shelter in some of the buildings around.
Spanish authorities say the attack appears to be the work of a terror cell. Police have 2 men in custody, a Spanish national and a Moroccan, but they say neither is the driver of the van. American officials were swift to react.
The United States condemns this terror attack, and we will do whatever is necessary to help.
Witnesses say the van swerved from side to side as it sped along the promenade, apparently trying to hit as many people as possible. The Islamic State has claimed responsibility for the attack. ISIS has encouraged the use of vehicles as weapons of terror because the attacks are very difficult to prevent.
Any iconic sort of tourist landmark, any place where people gather, restaurants, squares, you can't protect all of them.
There are police checkpoints on roads leading in and out of Barcelona. Spanish officials have declared 3 days of mourning. Terry Okita, CBS News, Barcelona.
Back in St. Lawrence County, 3 people have been indicted for this month's stabbing and shooting in Messina. 23-year-old Damian Giartano, 32-year-old Amanda Terrence, and 25-year-old Alan Green are all in custody, charged with several counts of robbery, assault, and burglary. 36-year-old Richard Hearn is also indicted on those charges, but police are still looking for him. The 4 are charged in the August 3rd attack at a Cook Street apartment. Anthony Lewis was shot in the chest, and Sergei Barsakov suffered machete wounds. Carthage Specialty Paperboard is facing hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines after inspectors cited them for dangerous work conditions. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration hit the paper mill with 61 different citations. OSHA says it found cracks and holes in the floor, catwalks without guardrails, and a lack of training for employees working on electrical systems.
Mechanical, electrical, whether they're training, no matter what they are, we would rather use that money in a proactive, positive way to make the plant a better, safer place to work.
Despite the problems, Carthage Specialty Paperboard officials say the mill is doing well with a backlog of more than 45 orders. Lowville has voted on 3 options to solve the village's ongoing water shortage. Those options are a fast sand filtration system, a microfiltration system, and a slow sand filter process for the water filtration system. Lowville issued a mandatory conserved water order earlier this month. In addition to the current system would cost the village $4 million.
But we would like for the engineering company to determine what the cost is, what the filter process is of each one of those, and see what would be most efficient to add on to our plant.
The village is spending more than $12,000 to hire an engineering firm in Watertown to help find a fix. The deadly protest in Charlottesville, Virginia has sparked a nationwide debate over whether Confederate statues and monuments should be preserved. Weijia Zhang tells us how President Trump is going after Republicans who disagree with his stance.
President Trump fired off a string of tweets Thursday, criticizing cities that are getting rid of tributes to the Civil War Confederacy. Sad to see the history and culture of our great country being ripped apart with the removal of our beautiful statues and monuments, adding, "You can't change history, but you can learn from it." Robert E. Lee, Stonewall Jackson, who's next? Washington, Jefferson, so foolish.
I did what was right for my city.
Baltimore's mayor ordered 4 statues removed from her city, and she is not alone. Other state and local governments are removing Confederate statues after a debate over this one of Robert E. Lee turned deadly in Charlottesville, Virginia. Wednesday night, the community honored Heather Heyer. The 32-year-old was killed when a man drove into a crowd protesting a white supremacist rally. In his most recent remarks, President Trump insisted both sides are to blame, setting off some Republicans who say the president must be harsher on hate groups.
Some of these groups believe they have a friend in Donald Trump. Donald Trump's job is to dissuade them.
The president defended himself against, quote, publicity-seeking Lindsey Graham and took a swipe at another Republican, Arizona Senator Jeff Flake, endorsing Flake's primary opponent and calling him toxic. Arizona senior Senator John McCain took Flake's side, tweeting, "Our state needs his leadership now more than ever." Weijia Jiang, CBS News, the White House.
Some residents in the town of DeKalb are without water tonight. A water line broke at noon today, affecting people on Green Street Extension, and Tanner Street, as well as the west section of Route 11. Residents on those roads will have to boil their water once service is restored. Ogdensburg is getting ready to spend millions of dollars on its wastewater treatment plant. The Maple City has received a $20 million no-interest loan from the state, and the city is also applying for grants. The Public Works Department says Ogdensburg's treatment plant could really use a major upgrade.
We have a plant that's anywhere from 50 to 40-year-old in certain areas, and we just need to bring it up to modern technology.
The city also says upgraded treatment plants could also accept wastewater from other communities like Heuvelton. Coming up, it's Game 4 of the Subway Series, and Mel also takes us to the pitch.
Hey, Chris, I was up early this morning in Dexter to check on the General Brown boys soccer team. That story coming your way in sports.
And Fort Drum families getting a little extra help right before the school year begins. 7 News continues after this.
From the North Country's news station, you're watching 7 News Tonight with Jeff Nelson. Tonight's weather with John Kubis. And your North Country sports with Mel Bussler.